Thank you very much for both being open to this short transition interview. Dr. Christian Jordal, you are the outgoing editor for the Journal of Family Psychotherapy, and Dr. Todd Edwards, you are the incoming editor with its new name, International Journal of Systemic Therapy. While this is a research-oriented newsletter, the e-news for IFTA, most of its readers from around the world are also therapists and counselors first. So I want to start with that. What kind of therapist or mental health practitioner do you identify as, and what is it like to be that in your context? And I'll start with you, Christian.
Well, I am, I'm in the United States. I'm in North America. And so I think the discipline as well as the practice is sort of marriage and family therapy. So my license is a marriage and family therapist. I think that at a deeper level, what that's about is it's about systems work, systems theory, and the models that extend from that. And so that's how I identify.
Awesome. Thank you. Todd?
Yeah, no, of course, I identify as a marriage and family therapist too. In my state of California, that can mean a lot of different things. Within California, a licensed marriage and family therapist could come from a lot of different therapy traditions. And so it doesn't necessarily mean systemic like it does, I think, in the rest of the United States and in many ways in other parts of the world. But I very much identify as a systemic therapist in my orientation.
Okay, thank you. We cannot separate the scholarly from the clinical and expect to grow as professionals. You are both academics as well, working in accredited marriage and family therapy programs in the US. How do you see your programs being places where scholarship and clinical excellence merge?
I think that where it merges is in best practice. And I think that on some level, there has to be alignment between research and how research drives clinical best practice. And that gets into the dissemination of that via education, via training, via supervision. And so that's sort of how I would conceptualize how they come together. And I also think that on some level, there continues to be an ongoing tension between research and practice. And I think that the journal, certainly Journal of Family Psychotherapy, has historically and will continue to be a place where it's clinically applied. This is clinically applied scholarship research. It's not necessarily hard science, but that doesn't mean that it's not vital for the discipline of marriage and family therapy to basically continue to try to do outcome-based kind of research to support what we do. Because then I go back to what Dr. Edwards just referenced, and outside of the discipline of marriage and family therapy, there are other disciplines who practice marriage and family work, but they do not do it systemically. And in order to continue to support our specialty, we need to have research that supports our efficacy.
Well said. Todd, how do you see the two overlap in your program or in programs in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly within our program, I mean, my colleagues and I conduct research, we produce scholarship, but our primary mission with students is to prepare clinicians. And I think as Christian was saying, I mean, I think there is an intimate relationship between research, scholarship, and training and practice. So I think within every course, within every supervision, I think we're thinking about trying to prepare students to be evidence-based in their work. And that doesn't necessarily always mean sort of related to psychotherapy research. I think that is related to family science and family research as well. And how do we integrate those ideas into the work that they're doing? So it all goes hand in hand for me. I can't sort of separate the two.
Okay. And I think that ties into my next thought about how hopefully all training of mental health professionals around the world can embrace that holistic, integrated, systemic approach that we all share. Let me ask you about being the editor of a major journal. What do you think, Christian, we'll start with you. What do you think your vision was for your stewardship of JFP? And then Christian will say, how is your stewardship of IJST going to be since we have a new name change?
I appreciate the question. You know, I'm in the process of finalizing a letter to my editorial board specifically, and I've been thinking a lot about my tenure as editor over the past 4 years. I think that I've been also thinking about what it means to be an editor, and it's a privilege to have that type of position. I think on some level, you have to be a leader. You're thinking about, you know, where it is that what is the journal that you represent, who is the audience, who are the members of that. And I think it's important to um, that your aims and mission always keep that in mind. And at the same time, I want to sort of think about innovation. And so when I think about sort of when I took over in 2016, the former editor had been in the role for 28 years. So that's a huge, huge shoes to fill. And at the same time, some of the innovation was very, very not necessarily big, but important. We made a transition to a web-based platform for the submission of manuscripts as well as reviews. And part of that process enabled us to begin to collect data, metrics that basically support what is our annual sort of submission rate, but also what are the most downloaded or cited, kinds of articles. And that helps to drive drive specifically innovation related to things like special issues. We had a number of guest issues over my time in the journal. That's the real privilege as an editor, is that you get to sort of not just, especially for this journal, an international journal, you get to become more familiar with what's going on across the globe. You meet individuals who you may not be familiar with their work to the degree that you may be after you go through this process. But in addition to that, you get to have a voice around really sort of salient issues that are going on in the field by engaging sort of other guest editors, for example, in special issues.
Very nice. Todd, how are you casting vision, or how do you see your stewardship of the journal?
Yeah, I mean, I think in many ways it's an extension, I think, of what Christian has been building over the past few years. I mean, even before the name change, Christian, I think, was really, I think, working quite hard to create an international emphasis within the journal to engage an international audience. And I think the name change is related to that. And so that was really partly what attracted me to take on this role, was to, I think, really kind of nurture this idea of a home for the international systemic therapy community, both as an outlet for emerging ideas and interesting work. But again, I think mostly, I think, to just kind of connect with and build community with practitioners and researchers around the world who I think just share so much in common. So with the editorial board, with kind of reaching out to prospective authors, I think this will have a very global kind of focus. And that's, I think, what I'm most looking forward to.
Awesome. Yes, I hope that this is also even a call for participation, that we can get people more involved in this type of work. I'm very glad that the
Absolutely.
e-news and the journal have had such a close relationship over the years. Well, one last question. What else would you like the readers or viewers of this to know about either of you, personally, professionally? How do you want to end today?
I think for me, what I just want to acknowledge is that professionally, I'm acutely aware of sort of that I stand on the shoulders of many of my mentors over the years. Todd has been one of my mentors. I also think that as an editor, it's not just me. It is the editorial board members and the ad hoc reviewers who have continued to. This is a collective effort. I'm to some degree just steering the ship, but it's a collective effort. And I just want to acknowledge the work of all those persons. I also think that on some level as well, it's about the publishing company that we work with, and certainly the many professional staff who support the process of producing a journal. I think that in the same way that right now, certainly in the US, but I think globally, we're navigating a lot of fluidity around higher education. I think that extends to the delivery of healthcare as well. I think it's the same thing in publishing. And I do think that there is, at least here in the US, a lot of tension in general in our society that creates sort of a tension such as between research and practice. And I think journals continue to play a pivotal role in creating space for thought, idea, and sort of intellectual freedom.
Todd, how would you like to end?
Yeah, I guess, one of the things that I guess I would want, viewers to be aware of is a lot of my clinical work and a lot of my scholarship has been related to family therapy and in medical settings. And I think with that, I think has come a multidisciplinary focus. And so I do feel like that's something I'm wanting to emphasize. For me, systems is not just about systems related to families and relationships. It's systems in terms of larger systems, and the medical system being a part of that. And so I want to sort of nurture multidisciplinary relationships in a variety of ways, and I hope that comes through in the journal as well, both in terms of who's reviewing for us, who's writing for us, and who we're reaching when it comes to trying to get information out to consumers.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time during this transition. It's not very often, like you said, the last one had it for 28 years, that you get to have both of you on the same place as we're doing this. Christian, thank you so much for your leadership and stewardship over the last 4 years. And Todd, we look forward to continuing to collaborate the e-news with the journal following this interesting time we're in, where everything's online and we're figuring out how to save the old and try to innovate as well. So thank you both very much, and I will see you around.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks, Daniel.